Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this meeting of the Boston Town Area Committee. I'm Councillor Barry Pierpoint. I'm the chairman of this committee, and my vice chairman is Councillor Patsy Marson, who is to my right. Before we start, may I remind everyone in attendance this evening that the meeting is being streamed live on YouTube. Before we run into the preliminary items of this evening's agenda, I need to run through a few housekeeping details. The restroom facilities are available for ladies on this floor and halfway down the stairwell for gentlemen. In the event of a fire alarm sounding, officers will escort everyone out of the building to the nearest fire safety point in the car park. Will all persons addressing this meeting please do so through the microphone system at all times, as this meeting is being recorded. Please ensure the microphone is turned off after speaking. Can I also ask you to get close to the microphone, otherwise we can't hear you. Because it's sometimes difficult if you're not speaking close to the microphone. Please be advised that abuse or intimidation of any kind will not be tolerated. Anyone who is deemed to breach this requirement will be warned and asked to refrain. If the behaviour persists, they will be asked to leave the meeting. Now we'll move to part one of the agenda, the preliminaries. Any apologies for absence?
Yes, Chairman, we receive apologies from Councillors Arayan Bath and Austin. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any declarations of interest? Does any members wish to declare any interest with respect to items on the agenda? No? Thank you very much. Minutes. Do I have permission to sign the minutes for the meeting held on the 28th of November 2024? Thank you. Just have a quick... You're right down there. Lovely. Right. So there's your minutes. Thank you very much. Right, update on actions from the minutes of the last meeting. I'll ask Mr. Perry to give us the updates. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. There are a number of actions to update. The first is regarding benches. Prior to Christmas, the chairman was approached by a member of the public undertaking a community project to map town benches with an aim to make it easy for anyone to find a bench near them through an app. Assets colleagues have subsequently collated a ward-based spreadsheet to locate and list them, and if members are agreeable, we can share the basic data to support this project. Do you want to?
Are you sorry?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
The second action is regarding Central Park security gate locking. As members will be aware, gate locking has been problematic on occasion. So our assets colleagues met the contractor with our PSPS procurement colleagues as yesterday. The outcome was that it was agreed that the contractor would continue to deliver the service in the short term with increased scrutiny through pictorial evidence and monthly meetings. A report concerning future options for gate locking provision will then be presented to members for consideration at your March meeting.
Just hang on a minute. We'll give the questions in a second when Mr. Perry's finished his report. Thank you.
Dates of future BTAC meetings have been supplied to the police, and we're currently awaiting a confirmation on a date. Once we get a confirmed date, we will add this item to the work programme. Green flag. So following a successful trip to Lincoln to discuss their achievements through this award, officers have been working to identify several key service areas that we need to engage in order to write an effective management plan for the award, with colleagues to attain a detailed site location and assets map, signage, park features, buildings and infrastructure. They're also working to put together a list of equipment and facilities plus management information, working on identifying what policies are needed for inclusion into the management plan, and colleagues are also assisting with engaging with community volunteer groups that are assistants in the park that will hopefully roll out during the next financial year. To assist in the developing the management plan, the chairman would like to get the meeting organising in the coming weeks. If members wishing to attend the meeting and be actively involved in the project could please now raise their hands, we will invite you to this meeting.
We do need some more people to join the committee because this is a very important project for this council, and we just want to make sure that we can do this justice. So can we have some more volunteers? We've got Councillor Gleeson, Councillor Saviak, Councillor Drayton. Sorry. Anybody else? No, if you're already on the committee, you're all right. If you're on the working group, you're fine. I want a lot more people to come along with it. I think we've gone about 3 or 4 of us at the moment. We need a few more. If there's any absenteeisms, then it makes us down to 1 or 2, and you can't really function like that. So we've got 3 more. Anybody else like to volunteer on our group, on our committee? Well, we'll start with those 3, and we'll try and galvanise a few more later on. Okay, thank you. Phil, is that it?
No. Well,
Carry on.
In line with discussions today on budget setting and finances, the Chairman is launching a review of the services the committee oversees. I've passed around a draft programme for your information, and we will report back on progress and readiness for the end of the municipal year. So you have some sheets just with the elements of the BTAC budgets that, as a committee, you oversee. We've put some months down to start looking at the individual service areas, and we'll be putting together dates to meet the relevant officers to determine the breakdown of the budgets and to go and visit some of the facilities that the committee looks after.
Could I just jump in? If you remember last time we had the BTAC meeting, after the meeting we spoke to all of the committee about looking at the review of the services, because we particularly weren't happy with some of the charges and some of the things that we were being charged for. And so obviously you gave me the mandate to work with Phil Perry, and between us we should be meeting the next 3 or 4 months before the next before May to discuss all the various areas of BTAC and really go into great detail to find out what we are being charged for. Then we can come back and give you the review and the report of exactly what we've found and what we're happy with and what we're not happy with. So thank you very much for that. And Phil and I will work together very closely right up to May. Thank you, Phil.
Just one last.
Yes,
addressing the letter in front of you from Mr. Wolfe. The council unfortunately does not currently have the resources to supply a permanent structure in Central Park. However, if any members are aware of a potential meeting place that could be utilised, please let us know and we can pass this information on to Mr. Wolfe. Thank you, Chairman.
Right, we'll take some questions. I think Councillor Danny wanted to have say something whilst Mr. Perry was talking, so fire away.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Phil, for the report. The only thing which I'm wondering about is that the company who's supposed to close the gate, the Central Park gates, have failed on numerous days not to lock it. Is there any charge or deduction from the price we're paying them, so we can take it back to our coffers or our bank?
I'm not aware there is a charge. No, no, there isn't a charge. The meeting was to ensure that the service improved to the point where and evidence that gate locking, unlocking was being undertaken, and as we said at the March meeting, Danny, we will be able to give you some options to look at the future should you wish to continue or not with the locking process.
I understand that some measures have been put in place now to monitor this performance of this organisation that looks after the gates at Central Park, and it's being monitored very closely. And I think I'm quite happy what I've been told today. And let's just wait to March meeting and see what happens between now and then, and we can report back. Right, thank you very much, Councillor Danny. Councillor Woodliff.
Thanks, Chairman. Did we get a refund from Anglia Water? When that major water leak occurred, and it was believed that we could claim back the sewerage aspect of it. Wasn't that correct? So I understood that the council was going to have a go to Anglia Water and try and get the millions, the thousands back from them that they had taken off us. That lot.
I'll hand over to Duncan Hollingsworth because he's going to give us a response. Thank you, Duncan.
It wouldn't surprise you to know that this is a particularly long and tortuous process. Anybody who's had any dealings with large multinational companies, it's still a work in progress. So.
Thank you, Chairman. Perhaps you could lean on with your,
By what?
your right hand or something. Squeeze them hard by the neck.
I am sure
Money out of
that
them.
Duncan's doing his best to lean on them very hard because he's that sort of chap. And I've had a few dealing with Duncan, and so we're both leaning on each other, don't we, Duncan? And we've got a good understanding. I'm leaving it in his capable hands. I'm very happy what he's doing, and I'm sure he'll come back in March and tell us where we've got to. He's just loading a lorry, lots of bottles to go and get the water anyway. So thank you very much. Thank you, Duncan. Right, so Councillor Gilbert, you want to have a quick word?
Yeah, just in respect to the point that was raised by Councillor Danny about the gate locking, I just wonder, now that we do have a trusted volunteer scheme, whether it would be well worthwhile considering whether or not a group of volunteers from the town would be prepared to take on the responsibility for locking and unlocking the gates. Not suggesting that they would want to do it, but at least it's something we could perhaps canvass.
I'll let Duncan respond. I've got my own thoughts on that, but Duncan, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. We have made some tentative enquiries with that group, and whilst the group are understanding of the conundrum that's being faced, is they've indicated that they wouldn't be wanting to take on that particular role at this moment in time.
I think there's safety measures involved in there and security measures, so I don't think it's a good idea. But anyway, thanks for the suggestion, Councillor Gilbert. We're going to move on and to public questions now. So are there any questions from a member of the public received 2 days before the meeting?
There are none for this meeting, Chairman.
Right. So does any person attending the public gallery wish to address the meeting, please?
I believe we have a resident from Fenside will address the meeting regarding the town transport. Welcome.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good evening.
Can we position your microphone so we can hear you, Hazel? Welcome to the meeting, Hazel.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Right,
the
is
cha-
that better?
The floor is all yours.
Oh, but can you hear me?
I can now.
Right.
Thank you.
I'd like to take a few minutes to talk to you about something you may not even be aware of. It's the Fenside bus. Now, last September, the Fenside bus route through Straight Bargate down to the memorial was cancelled with no public consultation. So no big deal, except for the regular users. Now, many of them are elderly and they're not as sprightly as they used to be. They like to shop at Lidl or other shops around the green, maybe dropping in for a cuppa with friends at one of the few remaining cafes in town. And before the bus actually stopped, they used to wait for it on a seat by the War Memorial, enjoying what is left of the old familiar Boston. Now they have to walk all the way up from the shop near Boots and then all the way back laden with shopping. Perhaps more importantly, patients at Parkside Surgery, by definition not feeling their best and not very mobile, have to drag themselves up to Tawney Street, then back down through Wide Bargate, through the precinct, then through the marketplace and down to the only bus stop in the town centre. And now this is a tiring and unpleasant experience, as I have recently found for my own. Now, the stop near Boots is a study in chaos. 3 or 4, sometimes 4 buses try to squeeze in. They block the traffic behind on the narrow road and they cause danger to people trying to get across the pedestrian crossing. Passengers who feel like frozen sardines with little shelter or seating on that chilly and windy area crowd the narrow pavement. Passers-by can hardly get by, and at school leaving time, the crowds of exuberant students, some trying to ride bikes on the pavement, add to the confusion. Now, in November, I wrote to the council pointing out the problems and suggesting possible solutions, but this letter seems to have disappeared without trace in the council's filing system. But if anybody is interested, I do have a copy. Now, it's obvious that the bus will not be reinstated, and I would suggest that a viable alternative would surely be for it to turn left from Southend, go up John Adams Way, then turn into Bargate to stop at the original bus stop by the War Memorial, and that is a route already used by many buses. It could then return down John Adams Way to pick up the existing route. Now, this would add less than 5 minutes to each journey, and there is little point to reducing travel times or the amount of traffic they encounter, as claimed by Borough Lane's director, if it results in passengers having to walk considerable distances to get where they need to be. Now, the problems for both passengers and traffic at the Boots stop could be solved by reinstating the stop by savers. The local buses could easily turn into the wide entrance by the marketplace. Waiting passengers could sit on the round concrete slab there or shelter under stop fronts, and there would be no inconvenience to passers-by. And perhaps more important, as far as this council is concerned, in these cash-strapped times, there'd be very little expense involved because the bus stop is already there. Now, perhaps the council could consider these suggestions or decide on alternatives to reunite what is effectively now a split town centre, making it easily acceptable for everyone. It would also go a considerable way, and you'll excuse my saying this, but it could go a considerable way to improving the public's opinion of the council, because their considered opinion is that decisions are made by people completely out of touch with the needs and wishes of the ordinary resident. In the case of the bus, Fenside bus, it's a case of this has been done by councillors who never need or use a bus. Obviously, the decision to reroute Fenside affects only a few people, but it has caused a lot of irritation and inconvenience. There is still dissatisfaction with the new arrangements, but most passengers, unfortunately, do not know how to or where to make complaints that are listened to. They just hope that the council is there to see their problems and resolve them, but not create them. And in this case, perhaps it might be worth remembering it is a bus service for passengers who presumably are the reason for the bus in the first place. Thank you.
If you can switch your microphone off for me, Hazel. First of all, may I thank you for that presentation and regarding the bus service through the town centre that's no longer there. I'm not here to defend the council, but I will say that there's lots of consultation with the public regarding all sorts of things that's happening in this council. So, you know, we do care. We are concerned about our residents. We do look after their interests, and we're here to serve you and to work for you and to ensure that you are getting the services that you deserve. I'm not going to go any more because I'll end up talking and I'll sound too political, and I can't, so I've got to be very careful. But can I just ask you, who did you write to at the council? Have you got the letter? Put your microphone on, please, because I can't hear you now. Sorry. Who did you send the letter to? I
pass it on to Mr. Danny, who agreed that he would pass it on, which I believe he did. We had it agreed, actually, that a copy of my original letter would be passed to each council member, but there seemed to have been a misunderstanding.
Tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to take the letter from you today myself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give it to one of our officers. I'm going to get it circulated to all the committee members here.
I would appreciate that.
And then we're going to look into the matter for you, and we'll come back to you with some response at some later date. Are you happy with that?
Yes.
I'm not going to discuss it now, we can't,
No.
but I will take the matter away and I'll make sure that all our councillors around this table get a copy of your letter.
Right. May I just make one further comment?
Yes.
I have said here that the perception, the public perception, is as I stated. Now, I completely agree that you're all working very hard to achieve, but in this particular case, nobody knew about it until suddenly the bus wasn't there. And this is unfortunate because the public in Boston, we're not stupid, but most people's attitude is they don't care.
I'm sorry, we don't think anybody's stupid, actually.
This is their perception.
I know, I understand that. Let me thank you for what you said. I'm going to ask our leader, Councillor Doran, to speak now, and she wants to have a word. So just switch your microphone off for me, please. And I thank you for what you've said.
Thank you, Chairman. Is it all right to call you Hazel? Thank you. Hazel, I'm sorry you've had this experience. I just would like to just say a couple of words to you. First of all, I'm sorry there's been a misconception that the council were the ones to stop the bus service. They were not. And I'm happy to chat that through with you. I'd like to invite you in to have a cup of tea with me. We can go over all these issues, including what you say is people's perceptions. Yes, I would agree at this moment in time, some people in our community have a perception, a negative perception of councillors, but as sitting councillors, we've all received very warm words of encouragement and support from other people who live in our community as well. The silent majority, as I like to call them, who don't want to stick their head above the parapet, perhaps on social media. However, you've raised some really relevant issues that I'd like to know more about and to help put them right if we can. I certainly can't promise that Bry Lane will reintroduce the service because I believe they took the decision for economic reasons. And I believe there were issues with Lincolnshire County Council that they didn't feel that they got the financial support and backing that they could have had, and funding went elsewhere, as per usual, for this borough, sadly. So with all that being said, you're going to leave a copy of the letter. Are your contact details on there? Lovely. So we'll reach out to you and get a date set when you're available to come in next week for a cuppa. Thank you, Hazel. And thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Dorian. Right, I'll take a question from Councillor Danny.
It's not a question, it's just a comment, just to assure everybody that I was working on the case. I raised the point with the LCC and also with Bry Lane. However, Bry Lane didn't respond to anything. But I'm pushing it with the county as much as I can because I feel sorry for people like Hazel and other people in our town not to have an adequate transport around the town.
Thank you for your comment. Councillor Gleeson.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just following on from Councillor Danny said, of course, the bus service is a county council matter. So by the sound of things, he actually gave them letter to the county council, not to us. But I do think we as a committee should be contacting the county, through the leader to express our concerns about the level of public transport down. And I think we should be supporting what you're saying. But really, this is a decision of the county council. They withdrew the funding. So I do think we need to be looking into that and maybe asking the county to come and visit us and explain what they're doing in the town.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gleeson. Right, Councillor Gilbert, you want to have a few words?
Just to mention the fact that some time ago, when the buses went through Narrow Bargate, Bry Line defended the decision to do that on the basis that rerouting the buses on the route that this lady has mentioned, Hazel mentioned, would incur additional cost. So I think it might be useful to have a conversation with Bry Line buses as well as the county council.
Right, I'm going to end the discussion now on the bus service. Thank you very much. I'd like to take your seat back into the gallery there, and we're going to move on with our meeting. Are there anybody else in the public gallery who wishes to speak? Mr. Wolf, nice to meet you again. You seem to be a regular to our meeting. I think we'll have to get you a chair with your name on it.
Thank you.
Pleased to meet you.
That's going a bit too far at the moment. I wasn't going to say anything until this gentleman just mentioned about reference to my letter that I sent to you about having a permanent structure in Central Park for, I presume you've all seen the letter I sent you. It's either permanent or semi-permanent structure. And the lady I spoke to, Claudia, was not sure that anything was going to be happening in 25, 26 with the budgets. So there was inherent sort of question beneath that, which you haven't sort of addressed. Is there going to be any further investment in what I was hoping, the incorporation of trying to get the foreign visitors to be incorporated more into Boston society? That's what I'm really looking for, and that's what I'm hoping.
I'm going to take that away because it's not here. We don't give the answers because we haven't got all the answers in front of us. So I'm going to take that away, and we've got your copy of the letter, and then we'll come back to you and address those issues with you personally. Is that all right?
Okay, fine. Sorry.
Are you happy with that?
Yes. Okay.
Thank you very much. It's nice to see you as usual.
Nice to see you as well.
Anybody else in the public gallery want to speak? If we're not, we can move on. No, right. We'll move on then now to That concludes the preliminaries. We'll now move to part 2 of the agenda and on the agenda items. Let's have a look what we've got. Right. This evening we have Steve Eason Harris, who's the Emergency Planning and Business Continuity Officer from Lincolnshire Fire and Rescue. He's going to be talking and do a presentation to us on building a stronger, more resilient community. Over to you, Steve.
Thank you very much. Can everybody hear me? Right, close to me. Right, how about now? Everybody hear me? Lovely. Thank you very much for inviting me along. I think this is about the third time I've been along to BTAC over the years. First time was just after 2013 when we had the floods. It was trying to encourage people to come and work with us so that we could get the community involved in responding to emergencies. Boston 2013 actually proved the value of and importance of the volunteer. They worked incredibly hard to recover the town, but also they identified vulnerable people. They helped those vulnerable people. They distributed goods. They helped identify people that needed extra support from the services. And Pete and I, we were flat out through that time, weren't we? Just trying to encourage people to work with us so that we could get the services that they needed so they could actually recover. The group was so good, they even got invited down to number 10 and they met the then Prime Minister and was congratulated for their hard work. This particular programme is really is a revamp of what we've always been doing. So we've been doing this project since 2008, which followed the 2007 floods, when the PIT review was published, which looked into why the country flooded so badly in 2007. It made a number of recommendations, obviously on the emergency services and local authorities about where did they go wrong. But it also mentioned about the communities needed to take in responsibilities for their own actions during times of flood. Then they told us you need to encourage communities to work with you so that we can actually mitigate future flooding events. Never told us how. So we've had to work this out, and through trial and error, we've worked a programme in this county that is now been recognised nationally as best practice. We've got some of the best community emergency planning groups in the country. They are continuously developing new ways of actually working with us. And I want to focus it on the town now, because we don't have any within the town. We have them surrounding the town, but nothing inside Boston itself, which is where this presentation comes in. Next slide, please, Peter. My glamorous assistant. Nope. Spacebar. Wrong. Yeah, born job. And he's broken my computer. Right. You have actually. Bear with me. We are a huge county, so I'll carry on anyway. We're a huge county. If you think along the lines of the landmass, we are almost the second largest county. Well, we are the second largest county if you bolt on North and North East Lincolnshire onto Lincolnshire itself. We become Greater Lincolnshire. We are the second largest county by landmass, but we don't have the population. Our population for the whole of the county is about 760,000 people, but we're made up of 544 different town and parish council boundaries, 23 county wards, but there's multiple district wards on top of that. 360 of those particular communities are or sit within a flood warning area from the Environment Agency. 520, so I can't do two things at once. 521 of those communities actually live with or are susceptible to some form of flooding from all sources of water, be that surface water, groundwater, rivers and seas, reservoirs, etc. So you can see this problem is huge. We cast our minds back to the, let me just log in. All right, exit that. Kick me out of the meeting, Pete. Sorry about this. So when I said he was my glamorous assistant, he actually sabotaged me. Teams. Yeah. Thank you. I'll get somebody qualified who knows how to do it. Yeah, one job. Yeah, so if you cast our minds back to earlier this month, we had a few days of rain, which wasn't predicted. The Environment Agency didn't give us the information that we required to be able to then do a more of a coordinated response. It was almost, they got caught out, which meant the community had an impact on them from flooding. Wibberton, just down the road, we had 39, thank you very much, 39 properties there, but during the actual incident itself, it was reported around 96 properties were impacted. That wasn't necessarily the case. So we have got a group that works in Wibberton, and we work with them quite frequently. Councillor Austins, who aren't here tonight, they are actually part of that group as well. We activated that group on that night. They opened up a place of safety in case we needed to use it, and then the whole system rolled on. Across the county, we are also having these groups set up and going to places of safety to support the local communities that were being impacted by the flooding. The reason why we do this is purely and simply to cut down the time it takes for us to get there to support the community. So the golden hour side of things is the most important thing that we're looking at. If we can get the community to start that process until we arrive, it enhances what we're trying to achieve, which is to maintain the welfare of that community. We don't train people to rescue cats from trees and put fires out. We just want them to look after the welfare of their community in the short term. Take it, I'm all up and running. Apart from, there you go. Right. There we go. So the way that we look at this is we define what do we actually mean by resilience or community resilience or whole of society resilience, because it's now being changed. Bear with me 2 seconds, I can hear myself still. Pete, what have you done to my laptop? Hopefully that should have worked. Yes, it did. Yeah, so community resilience has been used for a long period of time. It's lost some of its momentum. So about 2 years ago, the government decided we're going to stop calling it community resilience. We're going to call it societal resilience, meaning whole of society. We work with all of society to ensure that we become resilient. It means the same thing. Effectively, all we want to do is encourage communities to work together in times of crisis, or before, during and after crisis, so they can maintain that welfare of the community. It doesn't necessarily mean it's massively complicated. The simpler it is, the more effective it is. We're looking at well-being first and foremost, to maintain that well-being, to give people the right information at the right time so they can make choices based on the information that are right for them. But also we want to look at the economic sustainability of the projects that we're doing. So we have got some funding that we want to use to provide communities emergency kits, telemetry kits, so that they can actually get a bit of early warning if water levels are starting to rise, so they can actually think about, well, who do we need to contact? And also it brings communities together. Boston is one of those areas that we've never been able to fully engage with because it's not the nice town and parish council boundary system. There's no central point that we can go to a community and say, will you work with us? Which is why I was quite interested to hear about. You've got some trusted voluntary groups and stuff. They're the sort of people that we're trying to actually engage with, but we don't know who they are. We don't know where they are within Boston itself, which is why we want to work with yourselves to identify them, to engage with them, to encourage them to work with us before the emergency takes place. County itself is huge, as I said. We've got more tractors per capita than anywhere else, I think, in this country. We don't have any we don't have any motorways. We have very few dual carriageways, and we have lots of caravans, static caravans, including in this area as well. The caravans are not just limited to East Lindsey. At last count, 39,000, I think it was. That's increasing year on year. All of that has an impact. For us, in this particular part of Lincolnshire, it's the hidden communities. It's the guys and girls who work in the fields who may stay in mobile homes or farms. We don't know where they are. We don't know how to engage with them. So again, it's something that we're looking to the committee to actually help us identify where these people are so that we can help them in times of crisis. We're not interested who pays their council tax. We just want to know we can help you to support you in times of crisis, so we can get the information to you so you can respond in sensible ways. We have a strategic framework that we've been working with, and we've defined this across the whole of the county. We're one of the first Lincolnshire Resilience Forums, and there's 38 of them in the country. We're one of the first to actually fully embed the community resilience programme within that structure. So when we start and are activated and we set up the county emergency centre and set up the tactical cells, we have a place within there for communities to be able to get information to, and we call it the Communities and Volunteer Coordination Cell. We're one of the first and only areas in the country to actually do that, because they hold the key. They've got the information that is critical to the emergency services doing their job. You know, we've got maps, we've got data, but we don't have that local knowledge, and the local communities do have that local knowledge, and that's what we're trying to get to. We want them to have a seat at the table so that we can work together to mitigate the emergency itself. Part of the programme itself is educating communities about risk. What do we actually mean by risk? And we're not talking about the big iconic things. You know, we can't predict where the aeroplane is going to fall out of the sky. We can't predict where the big fire is going to take place, but we can, with a degree of success, identify where areas may flood. Coastal, for instance, we can predict those quite well. We get a very good lead up time to it. But surface water flooding, rivers and seas, groundwater, that's a bit different. It's a bit difficult. We used to call it flash floods. When that happens, it happens very quickly. So we want to get those messages to the communities quickly and respond quickly. And this is what this programme is all about. We actually tried, when we first started this, we had a bit of a scattergun approach. So I mentioned earlier on 544 of those town and parish councils. We contacted as many of those as possible, hoping that they'd all think, oh, this is a great idea, come and work with us. You wouldn't be surprised to hear that only 5 did. So now we do target our groups. So where there has been flooding, we target those groups. Sadly, you know, what we're trying to do is to focus on what's taken place immediately within their community and turn it into a positive. So we've been using data. So storms Babette and Henk, we had lots and lots of data where people, properties and people were flooded. We've overlaid that onto our mapping systems. We've overlaid it with fire and rescue callouts, so we know where pumps were sent to, where pumps were being used, where we had near misses, where we had property near misses, such as gardens, roads, drains. And we've overlaid that onto a map so we can see exactly where the concentrations are. And it's those concentrations that we've been focusing on recently. Across the county, we've got 73 community emergency groups that are actively working with us and capable of responding today. We've got another 114 that we're actually engaged with, but we don't have Boston Town itself, and that's where we want to develop a way of being able to fix that, because nowhere that's urban has managed to do that yet. So we want to be, we want to work with you to identify how we can actually get Boston communities on board. And it's about the community, not about the council. It is about community emergency planning. Okay, so we want to know how we can actually do that and target those engagement sessions directly to where it's actually needed the most. Fenside, you mentioned Fenside. Fenside in 2013, we had the a community centre open there, and the volunteers there were absolutely fantastic. So these groups are out there. It's just how do we engage with them? As I say, we want to engage with these groups, but first of all, we need to know where these groups are. And then once we've identify the groups, we have an approach. So we will contact them, we'll provide them with an induction. Everything that we give is free. Our time is free. We'll provide them with emergency kits. It's about 300 quid's worth of personal protective kit. We've got loud hailers because people like to shout for some reason, high-vis jackets, two-way radios, etc. We also give them a weather station. And if it's a flooding related issue, we can also look to work with the lead local flood authority to install telemetry kits, which we then provide them with an electronic dashboard so they can keep an eye on when the water rises. Because majority of people, they look at the EA's flood warnings and flood alert system. Majority of people don't sign up to it, which is a bit of a worrying statistic. But also, when those warnings sometimes come out, it's too late. So we want to be able to act before the event so that it gives us plenty of time. Once we've done that initial communication and consultation, we then contact them again in about 12 weeks' time, just to see how they're going, what support do they actually need. So it's 12 weeks, 2 weeks, sorry, it's telling lies there, 2 weeks' time. We want to engage with them. We want to develop community emergency plans, okay? Now, if we got Fenside, for instance, I'm sorry, I'm going to use you again as an example, Hazel, because they were really good during 2013. You only need 4 people to start this process, just to start the process of coordination. Who do you call? When do you call? Who outside of the community do you need to notify? We are 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, but we are not public facing. The only way you get hold of us is through using these community emergency plans. We provide that access point throughout the life of the plan. So we only need 4 people initially to start this process. We'll then visit them again 6 weeks after that, just to see how they're going, making sure everything's okay. And again, then 10 weeks later, which is the final induction side of things, by which point we hope to have been onboarded them onto the programme, provided them with some basic training, first aid, operational response, supporting the local emergency services, but also providing rest centre support, and also dealing with the media, because the media like to get involved. How do you do all these things? It's all common sense approach. We don't, as I said earlier on, we do not train people to put fires out and rescue cats from trees. It's just about the welfare. The plan itself is not as complicated as it sounds. We've now got an electronic form. You go online onto the Lincolnshire Resilience website, go on there, you'll find an electronic form. You fill in the questions and it produces a plan for you. So we try to make it as simple as we possibly can, which is, again, we're the first county, and I'm not saying Lincolnshire County Council, I'm saying as a county, we are the first county to develop this and actually have it working. And it's been pushed forward by the communities themselves, not by the officers, but by the communities. And that's why, again, we want the communities to be involved in this process right the way through. We've got mapping tools that we've got available to communities. We've got telemetry kits that we want to get out there so that people have got early warning systems. We've got notification systems that we want people to get involved with. And it's purely and simply to make sure that we can get the right information to the right people at the right time, rather than relying on what does Facebook say? What does this social media platform say? Because there's so much misinformation out there. We want to get them the ground truth, and also vice versa. We want information from them. We want to know where it's flooding, because if we don't know, we're not coming to support. And that's the biggest take-home message that we've got when we speak to communities. If you respond to an emergency and don't notify us, don't expect to see us, because we can't support everybody all at the same time if nobody's actually told us that they're in need of support. Which then brings another aspect, is most people think somebody else has dialed 999. They don't. And what we end up finding is that nobody's phoned 999, which again, if we don't know, we cannot come and support. This is where you guys come in, because what we are after is we want to identify those willing groups that will work with us throughout the town. In each ward would be nice if we could, because it's too big to have one single plan. Okay, community plans. This is not the council's emergency plan, because that's something that Pete and I look after. But the community themselves, what do they do initially when that emergency takes place? We want to be able to champion, or we'd like to look to you to champion the community resilience programme in Boston for us, and working with us to champion that, to encourage as many people and many groups as possible to work with us, so that we can actually then look at making Boston one of the most resilient towns in the county. We want to support those communities for an ongoing education. So what do we mean by flooding? What do we mean by an emergency? What do we actually mean when we say groundwater? You know, when we had the flooding in Wiverton, what actually was that? It was overtopping caused by tide lock. But what does that actually mean? So it's all this type of thing that we can actually give people the right information, so they become aware of the situation and be able to do something about it. That's my ask, and I hope that we can work together as we go forward. But more than happy for questions. Yep.
If you're not still engaging with Fenside, then I'd be happy to get a group in Fenside. We're just about, within the next couple of months, we're going to have the community centre up and running with our own committee. And I'd be happy to volunteer as well to do the. So if you'd like to get in touch, I'll give you my number or whatever, and we'll sort that out.
Yeah, I'll pass my number through.
Lovely.
We can actually.
Thank you very much.
That's,
but yeah,
so that's one.
Because it really worries me with Fenside, because all the elderly bungalows are right on the river, and it goes through my mind. You know, what we're going to do if it floods, and it's So I've been very The
community emergency plans, they focus on three areas really. It's about who within the community can help, who within the community need help, and how can we get that message out. And that's if fundamentally if that's what you've got, then you're better off than you are if you've got nothing at all. And if it's in one place, you can make those phone calls quickly. But yeah, thank you. I'll make sure that we engage.
Training too. So.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Dorian.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for the presentation, Steve. That was really interesting. I think that the challenge you've set us tonight, and it's not an unreasonable challenge, is that we represent 7 town wards around this table this evening. And I don't think it's unreasonable that each ward identifies at least one community group that could respond and start to work with Steve. I don't think that's a difficult task at all. And in fact, wards like my own, and my 2 colleagues are here, Councillor Gleeson and Councillor Drayton, where there's 3 or 2 member wards, we would be looking to get more than one community group up and running. So I think that's really good, and I'm encouraged by that. And in addition to that, I'd say that after the recent flooding in Wiverton, one thing that we want to look at going forward as a council is how we communicate that message to people about preparing for floods. And I recall when my children were in primary school, there was a period of time where they all had to come home and do a fire evacuation. And it woke parents up to the idea of, oh, wait, how are we getting out of this property if there is a fire? And I think now there's a moment in time now where we need to do that with flooding, where perhaps through the children of our community, we could work in partnership to get flood plans, individual family flood plans, preparation before the event, and then what they're going to do if an event occurs. So I'd be very happy to commit council resources to work with you.
Thank you. No, that's great. What you said there is absolutely spot on. The kids are a great conduit. So in 2013, we had issues with language barriers at the rest centres, and it was the children that broke those barriers down. Amazingly, we have a programme in the County Duke of Cornwall Awards, which looks at uniform use, so the Scouts, Guides, police cadets, etc., etc. And it teaches them about resilience, and exactly as you've just described, it just goes a stage further. The older sides of the movements themselves, we get them involved with community work. So if you've got Scouts, Guides, police cadets, RAF cadets, Sea cadets, I believe you may have it.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
ideal because they can actually get involved with this. Because what we're looking at is community resilience. Who in the community can help, who needs help, and how can we get the information out?
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm really thankful. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay,
Thank you, Chair.
thank you. Councillor Gilbert.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges that we face in Boston town centre is the complex demographics.
Yeah.
Not only do we have very many different communities living with us, sometimes those communities are largely transient, they come and they go. There's a lot of what is called churn. And so it makes it very difficult to sort of reach out and pull groups together. That wouldn't be quite the same in a parish where the populations are probably more stable and probably sort of more homogenous, if you like, in terms of their background. You mentioned the different types of flooding. I mean, I think there are basically three. There's water backing up, which is what we had recently. There's fluvial, which is from the rivers, and that's normally north of the sluice. And we also have tidal. The problem with tidal flooding seems to have disappeared now we've got the barrier, but the barrier may have contributed to other types of flooding. Yeah. I just wonder whether or not as part of your role, it's to engage with the EA, the drainage boards, the Canals and Rivers Trust, and actually try and get a real sense of what kind of flooding profile there is for this part of Lincolnshire, because it is very complicated in itself. Yeah. And there are very many actors and players involved in trying to resolve the problem to begin with, let alone trying to deal with it once it's happened.
Absolutely, yeah. No, it's true. I would add in a few more types of flooding that you just mentioned there. There are so many different types of flooding. Yes, the answer is yes. We do work with the Environment Agency, the internal drainage boards, riparian ownership. I sit on one of the flood and drainage groups themselves. We're always trying to find ways to mitigate flooding, but this is about what happens when it has happened. How do we get the information to the people that need it the most? How do we actually respond where it's needed the most? So, and I do take your point on board. Boston is very diverse. Yeah.
Some years ago, the county council decided to defund the use of the Claxtons. And one of the comments that came out from that conversation, or the conversations that I was having around my neighbourhood in Boston, was that most of the people from Eastern Europe recognised the klaxon as an almost universal sound of distress or danger. So this argument they were pushing, the EA were pushing, that having everyone using their smartphones to be alerted to the fact there was likely to be a flood struck me as being quite ludicrous, given the nature of Boston's town centre population. And I just wonder whether, as part of what you're doing, there may be some conversation about reinstating the 20 grand or whatever it was that was taken away when they decided to decommission the Claxtons.
The short answer to that is no. It's a political decision they made. It certainly wasn't, the officer level. We had nothing to absolutely no say in that. However, what I can say is the technology that was used when they were was World War II technology. I can remember actually standing underneath one out in Skegness, and when we were doing the testing, and we set it off, and absolutely nobody looked up to see what was going on. We have double glazing these days. If the wind's in the wrong direction, you couldn't hear them. Excuse me. So the decision was that the Environment Agency were going to go down this new route. I don't think it's been as successful as it could have been, which again is why we want to engage with as many communities as we possibly can. You're right, in terms of town and parish councils, nice boundary. People tend to be stationary, whereas in the towns they are very transient. But there are pockets, and it's those pockets that we want to try and identify.
Thank you. Councillor Drayton.
Yes. Thank you, Steve, for the presentation. It was really good. You have now got your second volunteer. I'd love to join.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
The idea of a walkie-talkie sold it for me.
High-vis jacket and a walkie-talkie.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
I can even provide you with a whistle as well. So it's great. Yeah, we have another program which is called the Ready for Anything Volunteers. So anybody who wants to be involved with emergency response that doesn't want to give or can't give their time freely to a community emergency group, but still wants to act as a responding volunteer, get in touch with us, because we will sign you up. We'll give you We'll even give you a beanie hat and a high-vis jacket and an ID badge and a bag. And we'll give you some training. I'll put a whistle in there for you as well. But no, I really appreciate the support. But I can't stress this enough. Flooding is one of those things that we see on the rise, if you pardon the pun. It's one of those areas that touches everybody's lives. And when it does touch you, it's devastating. And we want to be able to try and mitigate that as much as we possibly can.
Thank you very much. Councillor Daly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Steve, for your presentation. It's quite interesting, actually, because it does, give us an option and scope how we can work as a community together to save ourselves. And just for a point of, I think, information, I take like food factories manufacturing as an example. Yeah. You always have marshals to train for safety. Then you have the alarm. Then you have the assembly point, which is it makes things easy. So there is the people who are trained to push people and to talk to people and get them outside. So I did mention that to I forgot his name, the head of the fire brigade in Lincolnshire at the county level. So we talked about it, and I say if we can implement something, but tonight that's what you want, and I think we can help you in that. That's one thing. The second thing, you talk how we can reach the people. I think probably Councillor Gilbert say, these klaxons or alarms or probably a speaker, come on, get out of the house now. It does help. I mean, it sounds probably a sort of an archaic idea. However, it can work. So how about the radio station? We have the Endeavour FM, which is purely Bostonian, that probably could deliver the message from one side. More than happy and the second thing, we can use again our radio station to advertise for having volunteers, because people, they listen to it. And also if we can get engaged with like sort of Asda's, Tesco's, Lidl, Aldi, these big supermarkets around the town, because they have the same system. And if we can have some leaflets to be passed to them, and then they can distribute it at the tills to people if they're interested. So in that way, we can probably have a bigger area to work on, and we may probably have more people responding to your call.
Thank you. Yeah, no, more than happy to explore that. We do have you're talking about my boss, Mark Baxter. Yeah. So yeah, Chief Fire Officer. We have a warning informing group that as a Lincolnshire Resilience Forum partnership, and we are a partnership of about 29 different responding agencies. That's police, fire, ambulance, etc., local authorities. We come together to share those messages. So during times of crisis, those messages get pushed far and wide through social media, through our website, through BBC Radio Lincolnshire, but also we could look at making sure they get pushed out via local radio. That's, because there is a real need, but I'm very interested about pushing this plea for communities to come and work with us via that particular point. So yeah, absolutely, we'll explore that.
More bit. I do believe that the Lincolnshire Fire Departments, they are also hiring people from the EU. We have a diversity in our teams, and that people probably can be used as well to deliver that news or the information to other communities. Thank you.
Yeah. We'll take one more question, and then we're going to round up. Councillor Gosh.
Thank you, Chair. I'll go for a more advanced technology solution. So obviously, people have smartphones, and it's not a big deal, sending alert or notification or a beeping loud noise, anything is possible. And the pupils don't have smartphones. You can always talk to the service providers, and it's automated messages can come to their phone. It will ring, it will alert, and it's quite possible nowadays.
It is possible. There's several different warning systems out there. So there's a government emergency alert. That only gets pushed out when there is a major incident or major emergency in an area. It has to be mapped out. It has to then be signed off by a minister before it then gets issued. For communities, we've also got a thing called Notify, which is against another government system. So if we're working with communities and we know that something potentially is going to have an impact on their community, we can send out an alert via text to the contacts that we've got, so they get the message, and it gives them instructions on what to do. So there are several different, and we are working and developing new systems as we go forward. But technology is great when it works. There needs to always be a plan B and a plan C. You'd expect as an emergency planner that I would say that, but it has to be used as an alternative tool to what we've actually got as well. But technology has suddenly sprung us forward, and we need to get a grip of it. Otherwise, we will be left behind. Especially, I feel like my dad sometimes when I'm looking at my phone.
Happy with the answer? Going to come back or not?
Yeah, absolutely. But I will say it's a primary solution for me. It's not secondary, because everybody carries phone, and the best possible and a quick one is sending an alert message rather than a text message, automated call kind of system. And this only the service providers can do. And we can always talk to them. And obviously, I think they will be eager to help in this situation.
Absolutely, I'll take those comments on board. But as I say, the government's emergency alert is already out there. That's what that's for, and it hits every phone within a specific location.
Thank you.
I will take it on board.
One last question, and that's it. Councillor Cresswell, that's it then. No more questions. Thank you.
Mine's slightly more of just a bit of an observation. Thank you. So as a council, we've set up our new WhatsApp channel. I don't know, it would be quite interesting from the council or a comms update to see how many people have actually subscribed to that. And I don't know how much in depth we can get as to what area they're from. But obviously for me, I'm thinking that a WhatsApp alert to send something out on that would be the quickest way to get something in people's hands on their smartphones. So I feel like as a council, we might be like, we're almost one step ahead because we've got that set up now and we're rolling that out. But obviously I would like to probably know numbers of who subscribed to that to get a feel, but I think that would be useful.
You were certainly using the WhatsApp channel very effectively during the last flooding to the people who have been affected by the floods. We also use the WhatsApp groups with the communities that we know have signed up to the plans, because we're able to push out those messages so that all of the group get it rather than just one person. So yeah, technology is great, but you still need to be mindful if it fails, what else have we got in place?
Right, thank you very much, Steve, for that presentation and answering all the questions from the councillors. If you've got any literature information or your presentation you can send to us or give us, we can get that information sent out. And then we will keep in touch with you regarding getting people on board to join your scheme. Is that all right?
Perfect. Thank you very much. And
thank you.
I look forward to working with you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Nice to see you. We're going to move on. So all the comments have been recorded by the officers. So thank you very much. Now we're going to page 17. We're looking at BTAC projected financial position as at the 30th of September. I'm going to ask Jenny to present her report. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm here to present the Q2 finance report and the forecasted spend against the 2024-25 budget. Outlined in Appendix A are the details of the income and expenditure relating to BTAC for Q2 2024-25, along with any identified variances. The forecast position is a net cost of £49,516. This final outturn will need to be charged to reserves to ensure a break-even position. This position is made up of minor cost variances in utilities, overspends in public convenience staffing due to agency cover, along with a small amount of additional income for Mayfair. An efficiency savings target of £36,455 is also included as part of the overall Q2 position. The opening balance of the BTAC reserve on the 1st of April 2024 was £207,611.
Can I just stop you for a moment? Can you just tell us what page you're on so we can all follow you on this report? Because everybody's looking a bit lost at where we are. Do you know what pages? Can you just tell us what page you're on? It would be helpful.
Page 21 is the start of the Appendix A.
Right, okay, thank you. And if you just keep moving to different pages, will you tell us we're moving to a different page? It would help us.
Yes.
Thank you.
So the opening balance of the BTAC reserve on the 1st of April 2024 was £207,611. After taking into account the Section 151 officer's recommendation of a minimum reserve balance of 70,000, the usable reserves are £137,611. Details of the use of the reserves for 2024-25 are outlined in Appendix A. Some savings opportunities have been identified in 2024-25, which have not yet been reflected in this position of circa £18,000. This work is still ongoing and further updates will be provided as part of the Q3 report. The recommendation for the Boston Town Area Committee is for members to note the financial position as at 30th of September 2024 and the reserve position as at 30th September 2024. Thank you. I will do my best to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. We're going to take some questions now. So anybody want to ask any questions to Jenny? Councillor Izard.
Hello, yeah, looking through this report, it's fairly easy reading. Just a couple of things, and obviously we touched on the park gates, so I was going to raise that, but I won't now. But when we got costings for mobile phones, who's actually using those mobile phones and why are they costing £70? Do we know what staff use the mobile phones?
I don't personally know. No, I'd have to take that question away with the team. Less Phil, you know.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of phones, there are a number of members of staff who work providing services for the BTEC area, and mobile phones is a standard charge within the budget. So most staff will have mobile phones in the course of their work. So an element of that charge will end up in the BTEC budget. We have a number of BTEC operatives, we have toilet attendants, we have event staff, all work within the BTEC area.
Okay, and something to consider maybe going forward. I notice there's a lot of what you would call fly posting around the Central Park when outside agencies advertise their fun fairs and circuses and various other bits. Maybe we could look at BTEC as whether we actually make official notice boards, advertising boards, and bring in some income that way. It might be more beneficial.
Comment?
I mean, not from me, but yeah, it would be a good idea to provide the income.
Carl.
Income generation ideas are always welcome. So thank you for the suggestion. I mean, we've got to test the feasibility of such an idea. I've seen electronic boards used, but obviously there's a cost to electronic boards. But if it more than wipes its face, then it's worth considering. So we can take that away as an action for consideration by the services. Thank you for your offer.
Councillor Gilbert.
Yeah, I think it's become a reality for BTAC that efficiencies are sought year on year now. I think that's what this report is saying. And I'm just wondering, we've identified, I think it was £18,000 worth of savings this year. Just wonder if you can tell us what the basis of those savings is and whether or not it has any longevity, whether we can sort of roll those savings across into further years, or whether we're going to have to seek further savings opportunities going forward.
Yes, so as part of, after we presented Q1, my team have been working with the budget managers within the BTAC service areas to identify where potentially costs have been charged in the past that aren't correct. So going forward, all those recharges have now been reflected in the 25-26 budget going forward. So those savings we found in 2024-2025 will be reflected in Q3 because the work's still ongoing. But also for 25-26, the budget's now been realigned for those service areas that we found those savings going forward. So, yeah, which I'll come on to my 25-26 budget session in the next item on the agenda. But yeah, that is something that the team are still working on now.
I'd like to ask a question. If you look at the employee costs, it talks about, I know we've had to spend about 52,000 to date. And there's a budget of 100 grand. What are those employees doing And how many have we got and how many hours are they working? Just out of curiosity.
Is this for the public conveniences?
Yes, I'm amazed at the cost of employing people to do public conveniences, yeah.
Are you able to assist, Duncan?
I think I'm not prepped for this at all, so please do excuse what may come forth. But I think there are a number of staff there that run those conveniences. There's not more than is needed, given the fact that people have days off and there are on occasions sickness. I do agree with you that that figure looks quite heavy for staffing costs for the limited amount of facilities that are run. As you're aware, I think Phil is probably going to be looking at that over the next number of months to see whether there are further efficiencies that can be driven out of that particular budget line.
Do you know how many employees we've got? You said there's several. Is there 2 full-timers, 1 full-timer, 6 part-timers? How many people are actually working in the toilets to generate that sort of cost?
I suspect that there are 4.
My question is, does it need 4 people to look after toilets to keep them well maintained and clean? But that's another matter.
Chair, this is the item we can look at as we go through our review. We'll be picking up. That's one of the items we've got on the list.
I think we need to look at that very carefully. Yes, I agree. So that was one question. The other question was on the water rates, again on the premises. These rates here of 19,000 you budgeted for, are they the rates now we've got the water system sorted out, or we still got problems with that figure there?
That should be an extant figure, Chair. It's not a figure with problems built in. That should be the baseline for figure.
Right. Okay. That's answered my questions then. Right, Councillor Gleeson. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. It's not so much a question on the budget itself. It's a question about the size of the print. I'm old and my eyes aren't particularly good, so I actually can't see anything.
You're not old, Councillor Gleeson. Not really.
And yeah, I mean, there seems to be a lot of page left at the side. So I think we could have it just a little bit bigger. And then the second page is upside down the way it's printed. And again, I'm too much to stand on my head and look at them.
I'm going to take note of that. I'm going to ask the officers and those who provide the documents to see if they can make them larger figures, larger print. If not, they'll provide us with binoculars so we can read them better. Or those thick glasses that you can get that you can magnify. So I have the same problem because my eyesight is not all that good, But anyway, I take your point. Right, anybody else? Councillor Danny.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just I have noticed on just after page 20 from the first table we have, I think there is a lot of maintenances, which is there is no prices for any or cost for the maintenances for Central Park, for spaces and play areas, public convenience. There is no maintenance. There is nothing. I don't know why. We didn't repair anything. There were no damages last year or last term. Everything was fine. Just the name of maintenance. But
the question he's asking is, there's no maintenance cost, or he's queried the maintenance.
We should have some maintenance costs, definitely, because.
Yes. Do you have a response to that?
So is this in terms of the repairs and maintenance costs line?
Yes, maintenance, because like Central Park, there is no maintenance, there is no figure there. Public convenience, there is no maintenance, there is no figure down there. So it just went through, I didn't see anything.
Is this in terms of the budget or the actual spent to date? So the first column or the second column?
Actually what you have here. Just I want to
Which
have
page
clarifications.
Which page are you on so that Jenny can...
Because there is no numbers, should be probably 21, 22, 23. So it's just a curiosity because there is no maintenances. I don't know why. Probably everything is perfect. Probably everything is good.
If there aren't any figures in the actuals for date, then that means there's not been any costs so far up to September, end of September last year.
So there were no repairs, no damages, no vandalism, or nothing. So
no.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Under the administration, there's some. Yeah.
But these ones, they don't.
Is
show
that to
anything.
do with maintenance on the administration?
Yes, so footway lighting, electricity and maintenance, there's a budget there for 18,000, but there's nothing spent to date against that line.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's nothing spent to date. Thank you. Councillor Cresswell.
Sorry, what I think is, obviously on your screen, I think it probably looks slightly different. Councillor Danny, if you look at the open spaces and play areas, if you look across, I think it's actually just that it's not in line on the print. So I think it's just not in line on your printed copy. So the repairs and maintenance for open spaces and play areas would be, to date, would be 1,920. I just think when you go across on our printed copy, it's just not, they've all moved down slightly.
I think, Mr. Chairman, as I will agree with Councillor Gleeson, I think we should probably just have it on A4, one after one is better, much easier, and make it the writing much bigger so people can.
We've got the message, and the officers have made a note, and I'm sure they will change the formatting with larger print and easier to follow. So that's something that we've taken note of, and we will take to the next meeting. I apologise about that. I know what you're saying, but at the end of the day, the information's there. It's not easy to read. I understand. Any more questions before we move on? Councillor Dorian.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I would endorse the instruction you've just given the officers to make sure this is more legible than it has been. Thank you. And I would urge you to look at, as you have already indicated to the officer, to look at the toilets, the costs associated with the toilets. It does seem unusually high, and I think if somebody said to me, I'll give you £160,000, would you like to clean 6 toilets? I'd bite the hand off.
When could you start?
I'll do it for 150. Yeah, it does seem unusually high. So, but that you know, I know we do get damage. We do incur a lot of criminal damage to the toilets. Okay.
I have to.
And one more question, Chair.
Okay.
Jenny, why are we looking at Q2 when we're nearly at the end of January now? Why is that? Why are we not a bit further ahead?
Thank you, Councillor Dorian. There are, well, when we first pulled this data together, the chair of the committee was keen that we try to explain and understand the rationale for some of the recharges. So that did result in some further work, which the finance team have undertaken with the services that support this account. So we had to fall in line with subsequent committee dates. So we did agree with the chair that we would bring Q2 to this committee as a consequence of seeing how we could get on with that work with the services. And the assistant director has taken it upon himself in agreement with the chairman to undertake further work regarding these the science behind the service charges, which you've also suggested is very necessary, and I quite agree. So that work is well underway, but it did lead to a delay with this, and then it caused a bit of conflict in priorities in terms of obviously the budget setting, which is the next item. So yeah, it's not normal for us to be presenting Q2 at this point in time, as you rightly point out. We apologise for that, and Q3 will follow rapidly. So Q3 will be following very rapidly, and that work is well and truly underway too.
Thank you for your answer. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, I have to say that Jenny and Carl have worked extremely hard in turning what was a shambles of accounting for BTAC, where nobody could understand the numbers, what they meant, what they stood for, how they arrived, and whatever. And I have worked very closely with both of them, and they've been very keen to do as a layout and a format. I know we want bigger numbers and bigger print, but a format for people to follow quite easily and understand, with little notes at the side explaining things. And you know, this is the first stage of getting this report looking something that you can easily follow and identify where the information is coming from. And I want to thank them both, and I want it recording for all the work they've put into this, because it hasn't been easy. They've not always had the cooperation from people regarding some of the charges. and they get frustrated because they've not had that cooperation from some of the areas to try and get this done. They've saved us £18,000, which I think is a congratulations, well done. And they're still working on those savings. And then I think when Phil Perry and myself visit all these different areas in the next 3 or 4 months, we'll get a better understanding of how these things have arrived at, how many people are doing what and why. The toilet ones always amaze me. For the 160 grand, what are we getting? You know, and I'll go and do the toilets for 100 grand if anybody wants to take me on. So I'm quite happy to do that. Yes.
On that, Chair, could I just say one more thing? Because I do see the toilet attendants quite often, and they are the salt of the earth. And I would like that recorded, that the attendants who do look after our conveniences are very, very good members of our staff team, and we are proud to have them. Thank you, Chair.
I don't think we can blame the attendants. I think it's somebody with a number crunching somewhere that's not correct, and that's what we've got to look into to find out how we've arrived. Let's go to Councillor Gosh.
Thank you, Chair. A simple question. We have seen here you have efficiency target, and which is increasing year by year, but I didn't see anywhere what's the plan to achieve that. From where you are going to achieve that efficiency?
As discussed in the BTAC action plan by the Assistant Director, there is work plan on, and there's also work underway. We've not expressly applied it here in the Q2 report. As leader of council has identified, this is running late, and we are rapidly running towards Q3. As Jenny's pointed out, we will be feeding through some of the good news into that Q3 report. And when we go on to the next report, the next item on the agenda, the budget report, you will see that the savings the savings target is fairly stable, which is good. It demonstrates that the work is underway, the good work is underway. But I think your question is, what is the plan for delivering that? And I think that will fall out of the work that the Assistant Director and the Chair of the committee will be undertaking between now and May.
Yeah, okay, thanks for that. But still, even if it's not planned and it's a rough plan, if you have a section there like what you're discussing, those kind of things, even if it's rough, at least it will give some idea that what exactly you are trying to achieve. I think that's better to put in that report.
I'll take that feedback and we'll discuss it with the Chair of the committee, how we can elaborate more in the report. But essentially, we are looking at all areas between now and the end of May. And like I say, we have already started looking at these services that are in front of you today. So no stone unturned, I believe, would be the correct phrase.
I say they've done a very big job here, and they've not got to where they want to be because of the amount of mess they've had to trail through and the amount of barriers they've had to jump over to get the information. And I think I'm going to defend these two, and I think they've done a great job. They've worked very, very hard for this committee. They've given us something that we can understand. There's numbers that make sense, that have meanings, and there's explanations why and how. I take your point, Councillor Gosh, and I know where you're coming from, but I think once these people have got everything in place, and when Phil and I do what we're going to do, the whole thing will come together and it'll make a lot more sense. Okay, are you happy with that? We'll move on now to Councillor Gilbert.
It's just really an observation, and having spent a number of years on this council on and off, my understanding was always that when you have a budget and you have staff costs, some of the management costs all the way up to the chief executive are hypothecated to that budget. And that's the reason why you get these sort of strange figures of £160,000 per annum for employing 4 people. It's a hypothecated management budget to that particular budget.
We need to get to the bottom of that, and I know where you're coming from, and I'm sure there's quite a few assistant directors, chief executives, and everybody else has chucked into that number. So that's how it's all arrived at. But we need to drill down, and drill down we're going to do, because we need between now and May to get this right, because I'm not happy at the moment. We're getting there, and I'm happy with what they're doing so far. I take your point. Right, let's go on to Councillor Izard.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's just a matter of clarification, really. So do we hold our reserves separately to the main council reserves? And if we do, why don't we get any interest from the reserves in that sense as income to BTAC?
It's a really great point. You do have reserves. They are isolated to the committee. That's correct. Let me take that away.
That's fine. Thank you, Chair.
There's all these questions that we haven't got the answers for. We'll have the answers next time in the March meeting because they've already have to come back with all the answers. Councillor Woodliff.
I was just going to say, Chairman, that we're a committee of the Borough Council, and that we are special. This is a special expense area. The money goes into Bottom Borough Council's funds. Strictly speaking, we don't have any real funds. Actually, we have a notional fund. That's the thing. So we don't get any interest on the money. Unfortunately, that's the reality of the life. I think we have a notional fund.
Thank you, Councillor Woodliff.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to come back with. You're correct. It is a notional fund, but I think Councillor, which one was it? Azad. Sorry. The point is that we can represent that on paper. We will need to just calculate what that looks like. Obviously, interest rates are going down, so I suspect it won't be that material, but there is an element there. I think we can do it. It's the question of, I think your point is absolutely relevant, and I would need to check that with the council's monitoring officer to understand the legality of how these funds sit. But on the face of it, I believe that that's something is worthwhile looking into.
Thank you. We're going to take one more question, then I'm going to move on. Councillor Gilbert.
Just in reference to the fact that we were talking at full council about creating a town council, or trying to identify at least the structures within which a town council would function, it might be quite useful for us to have some work done on the budget, so we know what sort of budget the town council might have if ever we were to move into a position where there was a town council.
Is that something for this meeting?
We're doing some work on the BTAC budget.
Yes.
It's quite timely.
Yes, okay. We can use the information possibly future forward going. Understood. Thank you. Right. Can I just say that ask the committee to note that the information, everybody happy with that, and take it forward? Yes, lovely. Thank you very much. Now we go on to item 3, the BTAC budget and the forecasts. Are you doing that one, Jenny, as well? You are good today, aren't you? Well done. Right, Jenny, then over to you. Page 25.
Thank you. I'm pleased to present the draft BTAC 2025-26 budget for consultation. The creation of next year's budget has been extremely challenging. The budget is set within a background of unprecedented inflationary pressures and significant changes in resident, customer and business needs. BTAC is asked to make a recommendation to Cabinet and Council on the precept and Band D levy for properties in the BTAC area for the financial year 2025-26. Table 1 on page 4 details various assumptions and scenarios for income and expenditure based upon increases of 0.9%, 1%, 0.5% and finally no increase. The impact on council taxpayers of the proposed 0.9% increase would be BTAC's Band D annual charge would go up by 72 pence or 1 pence per week. The impact for all bands is shown in table 2 on page 5. 70% of BTAC households are in band A and B. This is approximately 1p per week increase. Table 3 on page 8 details the tax base for the current year, 24-25, and the expected tax base for the coming years. Both the income and expenditure budgets have been forecasted for the coming years. Please refer to table 4 on page 9. These are summarised according to the SIPFA standard classifications. Appendix 1 gives a more detailed breakdown of these costs for each service area. As reported to the committee in 2024-25, if budgeted expenditure is in excess of budgeted income, such efficiency savings will be required in order to deliver a balanced budget. Decisions will be needed throughout each year to establish if these savings can be achieved or whether a drawdown from reserves will be required to cover this. Reserve balances are detailed on page 10 at table 5. It is estimated that there will be a carried forward balance of £139,955 at the end of the 2024-25 financial year. Note that this balance includes the £70,000 recommended reserve balance by the Section 151. Tables 6 and 7 give further detail on future estimates all the way up to 2029-2030. Members are asked to consider the report and the increase required for BTAC for 2025-26. I am now happy to answer any questions members may have.
Right, we'll take questions from the floor. Anybody? Councillor Cresswell.
It's just an observation. There's a typo at the top of page 3. It says 202/25. It needs to be 2024-25.
Councillor Gilbert.
Yeah, thank you. It's just really about the, I mean, obviously we don't want to put the council tax precept up any more than we absolutely have to, because people are struggling out there. But on the other hand, I guess the decisions that we make are determined very much by the efficiency savings that we're able to identify. And so I think, you know, it's difficult to make a decision at the moment until we know exactly what those efficiency savings are, where they're coming from. Sorry.
Thank you. Noted that. Councillor Gleeson.
Thank you, Joe. Yeah, actually a nice, clear and readable report.
With big letters and big numbers.
Yeah, big numbers. But I mean, the reality is, of course, we are restricted in what we can increase our council tax by, and so the options before us are the options we've got, or we don't increase at all. My personal view has always been that obviously we do need at least to try and keep up with inflation as far as we can, and so I will be supporting the 0.9%, which seems the sensible compromise. My question is obviously we are projecting our budgets to the future when we're not going to be here. So in the last year, do we have to keep the £70,000 in reserve?
Can you answer that one for me, Carl or Phil?
With the current known facts, whilst other reviews and policies are determined, and there is some way to go in determining the impact of government policy and proposed white papers. Yeah, the £70,000 minimum that the Section 151 of the Borough Council determined should be at the threshold below which the committee's funds should not go. It's determined locally, so that is not mandatory or legislative. It is merely a prudent level of funding to keep in reserves so that you can afford to be a going concern in future years. But yeah, if we had a crystal ball to know what we would look like in 3 to 4 years, it may change that situation. If you feel it should be any different, then you are, in accordance with the recommendation report, able to suggest an alternative if you wish for Cabinet to consider. Consult the Section 151 officer we're on.
Oh no, I'm happy with what it is for this year. It's just more looking to future budgets.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Gleeson? Thank you very much. Any more questions before Councillor Gosh?
Thanks, Chairman. Is there any specific reason there is a decrease in tax base rate?
So the formula that is set central by central government, it's a regulatory formula, so it's consistent across the country. So the Revenues Department calculate and estimate the tax base for all of the public authorities. What it takes into account of is discounts, typically discounts, and it's trying to achieve an average Band D equivalent for each authority. So it's the same in the case of BTAC. So you will have had some discretionary discounts that you will have applied. So that's in the formula sense has resulted in a decrease. So actually, whilst we are still building new premises and new dwellings within the area, the overall consequences, and as Jenny's reported, 70% of properties are in Band A and B. So a lot of those properties will be receiving support. Some of that's discretionary, some of it is nationally agreed. And that is what drives down your formula in some cases. And this is just one such year where the increase in discounts and properties that are eligible for those discounts means that the average baseline actually decreases on this occasion.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Are you happy with that? Okay, thank you, Councillor Gleeson. Thank you, Councillor Gosh. Anybody else, or can we move on? Right, so the recommendation is then, I'll read the recommendation, that BTAC recommends to the Cabinet and Council the level of its special expense precept for 25-26 at 769.058 and the council tax charge of 81.09 of Band D. Can I have a proposer, please? Councillor Gleeson. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Drayton. All those in favour? Thank you. Any against? And any abstentions? Right, motion carried. Thank you. That all the details have been recorded by the officers. Can I just thank Carl and Jenny for their reports, and thank you for the work you've done on the BTAC, getting all this information. Just do bigger sheets or bigger numbers to read, but otherwise, well done, excellent. Very, very pleased. Now we're going to page 43 to the next report. Now that's on footway lighting. I'm going to ask Duncan Hollingsworth to present his report. And then
if I could mention, Chair, as portfolio holder for assets, I was going to present it, but obviously Duncan.
Oh, beg your pardon, I do apologise.
Thank you, Chair.
On my chairman's notes, it doesn't have your name on, Mr. Baxter. Councillor Baxter.
It mentions Dale Broughton, but I'm his substitute. We are twins.
We'll make a note of that.
So it's my pleasure as John Baxter on page 43 to present the report on footway lighting. Its purpose, we've discussed this before in March and August, is to consider the funding of footway lighting for the BTAC wards. The decision was deferred before to do with like financial implications and further inquiries. Now we have all the information, and thanks to Duncan and also Tracy, the officers, they have done a lot of work on this. Pretty straightforward then. On page 44 it lists all the sightings of the lights and their wattage, and then that's on page 44. We have 21 assets altogether within BTAC area. Page 45 then goes on to explain then this is to do with installing 18 watts LED light fittings. The quotation is based on obviously a visual inspection. It does cost extra to, if for example, to have pole brackets, which could only be spotted when there was a structural inspection. So this takes into account that we've spotted there are 2 lights at the Garfitz Road location, and the costings include that replacement. So it's estimated at £7,350 plus VAT. As I mentioned, that could alter based on structural inspections, and it's based on obviously the quotation at the moment. It might be different post quote terms. So just to qualify as well, and for clarity, our lights in town then are full light rather than part night lights. So there is an option to reduce from full night to part night, but the team recommend, mainly for the safety and security of people in town, that it remains that they're full night light. But that is something that you could consider. So the team have got together and taken lots of time, thanks to them, and undertaken some calculations. They're looking as well at the potential savings. You might have read parish councils have taken this forward and have come back with information to say that it was an invest to save. So they're currently looking at costs, 1,369 to operate based on an average night of 11.76 nights with the electricity at 37.6 pence per kilowatt. Changing the lighting heads to LED would reduce the cost by £610. So investing to save equates then to a potential annual saving of £758.55 or a reduction of 44.6%. So that means that then there would be a capital payback in 9.69 years. So quite a comprehensive summary. The recommendations are that you as the committee consider the information provided, determine whether it wishes to resource the footway lighting upgrades set in the report. The reasons for the recommendation is we provided the information to consider the investing to save and whether you wish to invest in LED upgrades. Very important as well then, this would contribute to a reduction of the council's wider carbon footprints. So open to questions, folks. Thank you.
I'll just ask the first question, if I may, Duncan. Are these lights the ones that BTAC are paying for, but the council own? Is that the way around?
Yeah,
so BTAC are paying for the lights, but the council actually.
That's my understanding. Yes, is the physical infrastructure is the council's infrastructure.
But BTAC are paying for the lighting.
Yes, that's my understanding.
All the lighting.
Yeah, that's detailed within the report.
Is that correct? I'm not sure that should be the case. Okay, Councillor Gleeson, you're going to ask a question.
Yeah, thanks, Gina. But I don't think these are the car park lights that are the issue, are they? These are the footway.
Yeah, is at the request of the chair. The car park lights and the ornamental lights were withdrawn and taken away from the original report. This is just lights.
These are the lights that help people get around more. So, if I just comment on this, when I first read the report, I felt this actually was marginal. Really, you've got a nearly 10-year payback on the thing, but on balance, though, I do think it's something that we should do. I think the impact on our carbon footprint, actually halving the amount of electricity we're going to use, counters the fact that it's a 10-year payback. So I would be supportive of us making these changes. So that's my 2 pence.
Thank you, Councillor Gleeson. Councillor Gosh. Well, I'm just going down the numbers on my list. You're number 2. Come in, number 2. Your time is ready.
Thanks, Chair. Excuse me, my lack of information on this topic. It comes to be £350 each for that bulb. It's expensive, huh? And the VAT is
It's not just the time for the bulb, it's having to get the machinery hire to get it there to do a temporary road closure if it's necessary. So there is a whole raft of things. It's not just the lighting head itself. So it's not a bulb, it's a lighting head. The head comes off, put a new head on, but then you've got to have an operative up there, somebody to drive it. So that's where you get you factored into your time.
And the VAT is 20%, I think, no? Yes. Okay. Some typo here, actually. It's a reduction of 55.4%, not 44. It's a reduction. It's reduced to 44.6%. The amount 2.6 1369 or 610. Is it includes VAT or it's just one number?
Right. That I believe that figure will include VAT.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Gilbert.
I was getting a bit blurred actually looking at all those small numbers, but yeah, if you didn't mind. But no, my question is this: obviously there's a certain amount of adaptation to the. Sorry, there's a certain degree of adaptation going on with the hardware of the lamppost, presumably, and then there is the replacement of the head into one of these new LED lights. What's the lifespan of one of those heads, and does that have any impact on the sort of the cost savings that we're likely to benefit from if the heads say need replacing after 5 years or something like that?
Yeah, it's the average lifespan of those heads are 15 years average. So there is an additional saving to be taken out of this as well. Obviously, they were only guaranteed for a certain period of time, and that's not anywhere near the duration of their lifetime's operation, but they are much more reliable than the other heads. So from an officer perspective, my recommendation would be that this work is undertaken. It's being undertaken widely through the rest of the country.
Can I just ask you, Duncan, how long has those lamps been up there? I mean, are they 20, 30 years old, these lamps that we've got currently?
The honest answer is I don't know, Chair. Unfortunately, I've only become responsible for Boston's assets for about 18 months. There are a number of mysteries and things that have gone a long time before me. I would only, if it's Boston, they probably were put up in the Napoleonic times, to be fair. And they've lasted quite well, but I'm sure we could squeeze an extra couple of years into them.
It's very good, thank you. Councillor Danny.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I haven't got much to say. All I can say, it is a very wise move, and I think it's an investment to save money, and I think we should probably support it because it's good for the town. I think some of the lamps has been changed, probably in Haven Bank on the other side. There is one, yeah. So it works nicely, which is good, and I think we should support it. I do support you on that one. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Councillor Woodliff.
Thank you, Chairman. Has this motion been seconded yet?
No, we haven't got that far. We're still doing questions, Councillor Woodliff.
No, I don't know. I just said I was going to support it.
He's going to support it. We're still taking questions, Councillor Woodliff.
That's fine. Okay. I was going to say, actually, I think it's a very good idea. The cost of electricity is quoted at 37.6 pence per kilowatt hour. But of course, that's going to go up, isn't it? And if it goes up significantly, then the saving is even greater, isn't it? So I think we should go for this as fast as possible to get started tomorrow, I think.
One more question, then we'll go on. Councillor Izard.
Yeah, I think Councillor Danny has just answered it in a way, but from my perspective, the illuminated light is going to be better or the same as what we've existingly got?
Effectively, it's a slightly brighter light, but the footprint of the light should be slightly bigger without causing any disturbance. It's effectively an upgrade rather than a retrograde step on it. So yes, I wouldn't expect to see anything less than we've got currently.
Okay, any more questions? Councillor Danny, just take one more then quickly.
I don't have a question because there's no more question. I will propose.
Oh, sorry,
I will need a second.
I thought you were asking another question.
And I will invite Andy Izard, Councillor Izard, to come to my bedroom to see the light because there is one just by. I lost my sleep there. It's too bright.
I think we'll keep the bedroom antics away out the committee, if you don't mind. Right, can I have a proposer then for the proposer, Councillor Danny, secondly, Councillor Gilbert. Are you all in favour of the recommendation? Well done, thank you. Anybody against? Any abstentions? No, all carried. Thank you. The comments have been recorded by the officers. Thank you very much. BTAC review programme. I'm going to ask Mr. Perry now to have a quick word. Thank you. Thank you very much, Duncan, for your contribution. As always, it's greatly appreciated. Thank you. Phil says we've already covered the BTAC review programme, which we did at the start, so we don't need to go through that one again. Nobody wants to ask any more questions, so we're going to the work programme. Standing item, Phil.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So the next meeting date is the 27th of March. On the agenda, we currently have the BTAC small grants, the Central Park security update, and also an update on from an events team regard to the Pride event that was proposed when the budget setting for events was undertaken. Really then it's and also a Q3 finance report.
Councillor Dorian.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'd like to suggest that we put a placeholder in there for the community governance review. I have said that we'll bring a report to full council on the 3rd of March. So I just think a placeholder. I'm sure things will be resolved at the 3rd of March meeting, but just in case you want further discussions of the committee, that work will impact greatly on this committee.
Okay with that?
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Jay. Yes, yeah, we'll put that on.
Just okay. Just somebody want to raise another question? Councillor Gilbert.
In the minutes that I mentioned at the last meeting that the county council have an obligation to try and work with us to maintain the overall good appearance of the town, and that it might be an idea to invite a representative of the county council to come here from Highways. I mean, I still know, although they've tidied up the Liquorpond Street roundabout now, and I think as a result of probably the work that the volunteers that I work with have been doing there, the rest of extending beyond that still looks a mess. And particularly the approaches to Boston on the A16. So I just think, you know, it would be useful to have a conversation with them about how, you know, various community groups and ourselves as a borough council can collaborate with them to just try and improve the overall amenity and appearance of the town centre and its approaches.
I agree. Do you think we ought to try and get somebody from the county council here to talk to us about that? Can I ask Phil to look into that? Do you mind? Thank you. Councillor Danny.
I was going to propose, if I may, ask Richard Davis, the Highways portfolio holder, to come and face us and sit with us, and we can talk to him. Yeah. I will send him an email, and however, Phil is free to do so. And can I come back? I have another observation for our program for 27th of March. We haven't got any inventory yet, or the cost of our the value of the inventory. Can we have something, because we keep asking all the time, we didn't get anything yet? Yeah, the beta cast, our inventory, whatever machinery, whatever it is, whatever we own, just to know how much we have and the value of this equipment.
Yeah, well, we can take that up then.
Even a piece of paper, A4, that will help.
Yeah, we'll look at it. It might be something for another meeting, but yes, we can certainly go and talk to our
make a note of that and look
colleagues.
into it. Yeah. Do you want to speak?
Yes, Chair. If it's not to make the programme too heavy for the March meeting, I just wonder, based on what we discussed this evening, and I know I suggested that we get at least one flood volunteer community group established in each ward. Should we hold ourselves accountable and put an item on the agenda for the March meeting, so that we're all very clear that that's a task that we are going to undertake, if the committee agree, of course, that we all make that effort within our own wards, and we put that on the programme. And if we could perhaps ask the officers, because we do lead very busy lives, to perhaps send out a reminder, perhaps at the end of February, to say, are you on track? Do you need any support from Peter Hunn or the fire service officer who came this evening? I don't want people to feel that they're floundering or that they're giving homework they can't do themselves.
Everybody happy what Councillor Doran suggests? Yeah. Yeah. So what we'll do? Can you make a note of that, Phil? Are you happy with that? Yeah. Councillor Gleeson.
Just one thing, Chair, about having county here at the March meeting. It's a bit late enough for you to work it out, and of course we don't know whether the county elections are going to go ahead. But if they are going ahead, we would be in Purda, I think.
So we'd have to then check to see what's happening.
Yeah,
then.
so just on that,
we'll put the note on that one, that if that's the case, then we won't be inviting them there for the March meeting. It'll have to be another later date.
Yes, yeah, sorry, I put it down as the upcoming meetings rather than March, because we're March meeting, we could rather full agenda anyway. So I put it for a future.
Just one more thing before we finish. I'd like to ask Phil if he could arrange a meeting of the Green Flag Group so we can get a meeting going sooner than later. So he will circulate a little email to everybody for dates when you're free, because I think we've not really progressed this as much as I'd like to see it progress, and I want to get a meeting going sooner than later. So we've got some new people joining the group, and I think it's important that we get back on track, because that went off the rails a bit, didn't it? That one did. Well, we know that, and that's why we wanted more people. Yes. So we've had a few issues, and now we've got a few more people on board. We can now start talking to other people rather than ourselves. Okay. And I want to get a meeting organised ASAP. Happy with that? Right. That concludes the business this evening, and thank you for your attendance. Safe journey home, and we'll see you on the 27th of March for the next meeting. Thank you.